Hello and welcome to this, what are we going to call an AMA, or basically just talking about the new version of CrowdSec 1.4.2. And my name is Klaus. I'm head of community. Yeah, true. That's what I am. And I'm here with Lawrence. Lawrence, who is our what's your official title? Support guy, support dude.
Anything with the word support in it, basically.
Something with the word support.
Yeah.
Yeah. And basically, Lawrence is going to talk to us about all the new, well, at least the most interesting features of the new version, and we'll probably also be talking about the metabase bug, right?
Yep. So even though we're talking about 1.4.2, I don't know if anyone's seen, but if you go to releases, when my GitHub decides to go up, there is actually a 1.4.3 pending. We're currently just fixing the build pipeline, so this will be out soon. But this 1.4.3 is mainly going to be released to fix the metabase stuff, because we inadvertently caused an issue with it. So once that is out, if you update to that, you'll have no issues with metabase moving forward. But if I hop back into 1.4.2, we can start talking about that. So 1.4.2, it's been quite some time since we last did a release in 1.4.1. So there is quite a few changes. I'm going to go into detail in possibly 2 or 3 of them, because they're quite fundamental changes to the certain aspects. But everything else that you can see here is quite little changes. So the first main one is about SQLite and the write ahead logic. So after you update from 1.4.1 to 1.4.2, if you try to run anything, you might see a message in your console that says something about WAL, which is basically write ahead logic. Let me just see if I can find the configuration.
Yeah, it's my impression that people see it and freak out.
Yeah, because it comes up with warning, and the first thing you think is what's gone wrong because it says the word warning. So the reason that we didn't enable it by default is because we can't take presumptions on how you're running CrowdSec. So by default, this configuration is missing if you're upgrading. However, if you're coming straight new installation of 1.4.2, it will be commented out, because you still need to turn it on manually or have this as an entity. So the WAL support stands for write ahead logic. It's basically like a way to have better concurrency in the SQLite database. And in our testing, it pretty much improved CrowdSec by 20 to 30% when it came to reading and writing from the data source. So if you're just running bog standard installation with just not hosting it inside a network storage, I highly advise that you turn this on, just because it does increase performance by quite a bit. So, and a quick and easy fix if you don't want to, let's say you've got multiple machines and you don't want to go through and doing all this one, a quick and easy command that you can run is, if I type it in the chat, you can use our new config.local, which I've shown Aidan. So if I just type this out quickly.
So is this in the documentation as well?
No, this isn't, because this is something that I found out when I was helping Aidan, because Aidan's got quite a few deployments and he was dreading that he had to go through over 100 of his deployments just to put in this one to stop that error message from popping up. But I've just posted it in the chat. Basically, it will create a file that's called config.yaml.local. And what happens with that is when CrowdSec first starts up, it will try to find a local file and then merge the YAML together. So just running those 2 commands will get rid of the error message and turn it on for you.
Yeah, because it'll override whatever default configuration CrowdSec installs.
Exactly. Yeah. So that is the WAL support. The next big change, I would say, is Cscli got a fancy colors and tables support. So if I just switch over to here. So this is my terminal, this is my machine. So on the previous versions, if you did CSCLI alerts, it might be really small, so let me just increase it by quite a bit. So if you run CSI alerts list, this is my machine, so I do have quite a lot of alerts, but I probably increased it too much that it probably sees. But normally you would have like the jagged lines between all the stuff, but now the tables are actually like proper formatted tables. And there is color support, so if you do CSLI help, you'll see that there is green and some colors make it look retro and matrix rather than just being like black and white. So that was one change that I thought was quite useful.
And the reason why the table was aligned before was because you made the text a bit too big.
Yeah, exactly. Just zooming in a little bit more. I haven't used this function yet, but this one will be quite useful for me because seeing as I'm in support. But we've made a CSCLI support dump command. The devs seem to like the word dump quite a bit. So what this does is Sorry?
Take the dump, eh?
Yeah.
Sorry,
so what this command does is it goes through the log file, gets the last, I think it's 200 lines of the CrowdSec.log, not any of your log files when it comes to obviously parsing. It gets your configs .yamls out of your Etsy CrowdSec, but it removes any sort of like API keys or anything like that. And then zips it all up, and then that's a zip that you can pass to me, which will then basically have a one-stop shop of everything that I probably need to debug what's happening with your setup. Sometimes it's quite hard to say to somebody, oh, can I have this, can I have that? And then let's say if the support forum goes dead because I'm trying to do something else, if I get it all in one big go, it's probably more chance that I'll be able to get it done in one shot rather than coming in for drips and drabs if you get it. So that's quite useful. This one I was just using, and this is where I found the issue. So when it comes to writing templates for the notifications, it's quite hard to test because when you make a change to your template, say that you want to include a new field in your notification, you would have to wait for CrowdSec to detect another attack or make another decision, and then it would then pick up the new template and then send it across to you. So with this notifications reinject command, you can basically get the alert and then send it back through the pipeline so you can receive the alert straight away rather than waiting. So if I just switch back over to here. And so I had this alert. Yeah, this one here. So this is 206633. So for me, this is inspect. Oh yeah, I'm running the wrong command. CSLI alerts inspect. Always forget the plural. So this one for me is a bad user agent from this IP address. So if I then re-inject this. So what this is basically doing is it's spinning up a mini CrowdSec instance to pass through this one alert, and then it's going to send it through the pipeline again. So if I go over to where I receive my alerts, which is just my Gotify app, you'll see now that I've got this new alert from 20 seconds ago. So I didn't have to wait for CrowdSec to detect another attack before testing out a template if I did change anything in there. However, you can clearly see what the issue is here. It's not retaining the same duration because obviously it's been some time since the first original decision was alerted on. So this, when it says banned for like 17 hours and 20 minutes, is actually this original command down here that obviously ran. But we'll probably have to look into that for the next release.
Yeah. So basically, what the idea with that is to make CrowdSec reassess or rerun an alert, or what's the deal?
Yeah, so the main concept of that is when you go to edit a template. So let's say you normally receive an email from CrowdSec that says this alert is this IP has done this and this, but you want to grab a new piece of information. So you go into your config, you add that into the format, but then you're like, wow, I want to make sure that my template's working. How do you do that? Well, you can use this notifications re-inject to send the notification to you straight away, so you can get like direct feedback on the template changes that you've made. So next thing for me is going to come from me. This is the one that this is a bug, well, not a bug fix, but one that could help you if you do use the email plugin. So in Postfix, there's a security config that you can enable, which means when a client connects to your Postfix instance, they need to send a valid FQDN, like a fully qualified domain name, in the hello message. If not, Postfix can automatically reject the command. However, by default, we just sent localhost, and we never sent anything different. So we've now got config support for that. So if you have that enabled on your Postfix instance, you can now alter that in your config, and it will now allow you to send that. We have new alterations of Docker images out there. So by default, we have two, which is just the normal latest one. And then we have a new variation called Slim. So the idea for Slim was to make it as small as possible. So there's no geo IP database in there. There's no notification plugins. There's literally just the CrowdSec agent. And that's it.
On Alpine or
yeah, we build on Alpine anyways. This is just for people that, let's say, are running a multi-server setup. They're just receiving all decisions into a single LAPI, and they then, from that LAPI, then send off to another service such as the Hive or anything like that to do the enrichment there. So they don't rely on CrowdSec to do the enrichment for you. So you don't want to be running these big images over all of these places. So it goes from 225 megabytes down to 60 in the image. So it is quite a big saving. Yeah. However, there is actually multiple different versions in there. But the only two that we're going to ship by default is basically Fat and Slim. We're not going to bother doing the other two variations. If you want to do those ones, there is some documentation in the Docker section inside CrowdSec if you want to build those certain ones. But yeah, we're not going to ship those ones because we don't really see how they're useful unless you want to build it directly. Cool. So let me just get back here. But how's it going? Is everybody staying up to speed?
Yeah, if there's any question, people can just write them in the chat, right?
Yeah. As soon as I see them in the chat, I can see. If not, I'm still keeping my eye on the lounge just in case people don't find the chat inside.
Yeah, I didn't do that, but maybe I should. Where the hell is it? Oh.
So this is actually a third party. Well, we call it third party, but this is actually a community contribution to CrowdSec. So this issue here. So they basically have a friend that uses a service, but they have a dynamic IP address, and they found it quite hard to whitelist their friend's IP because obviously it's dynamic, it changes all the time. So he or they came up with a solution called lookup host. So this is a function that we only recommend that you run in your post overflows. What it does is it just does a DNS lookup on the domain name, and if it resolves to the IP and the IP is exactly the same that's in the overflow, so for this example here, then it's classed as whitelisted. So if you use like services like duck DNS, or I think it's called no IP, I think. If you use those services and you want to whitelist an IP address behind there, you can use this function inside your post overflows. So let's say if you got friends or family that have a dynamic IP and you don't want them to get banned, you can use that as a way to do it. However, we need to reiterate the point that this is a DNS lookup. So if you, let's say, whitelist a domain that's behind a CDN provider, then you're going to whitelist every single domain that's behind that CDN provider. Also, as to the fact it's a very expensive function, so only run it in your post overflows. Don't run it in, like, let's say, your scenario or your parser, because it's really expensive. So it probably will slow down CrowdSec.
Yeah. So use it with caution, and only if you know what you're doing. And if you don't, and screw something up, it's not our fault.
Exactly. Also, as well, make sure that you don't take. So it's hard to explain it. Make sure that you only take trusted input into the lookup host. So let's say if you pass in like a variable that's been passed from like a header or something like that, don't pass it into the lookup host, because then you could obviously get not remote code execution, but they could call home to a DNS that they control through the parameter. But that's only from my testing that I found that.
Yeah, again,
cool.
Use with care, right?
Exactly. Use with care. Yep. So, yeah. So, another nice to have is plugins now allow you to load environment variables. So if you don't want to obviously hardcode your email password in your plugin, you can then store it inside just the environment variable instead. Can be quite useful for Docker images, because obviously you could just pass in the variable to Docker and then you can pick it from there. Yeah, these are just like quite very vague bug fixes. Let's go for another big one, which is auto updates for CrowdSec. So we've had it for some time where the hub won't get updated unless you run the commands manually. So that's CSCLI, hub update, and then hub upgrade. Yeah. However, CrowdSec now comes with a cron job, which will run those commands for you daily.
Sorry? By default, or how does it work?
Yeah, so it's installed into the Debian and RPM packages. So if I just open up CrowdSec repo and go to the config, you can see the cron here that runs. So it basically tries to upgrade, and if it gets a single line back from the upgrade function, it knows that something has upgraded, and then it runs the reload command on CrowdSec. So if you get any new scenarios, let's say we push a new CVE into the HTTP collection, then you'll receive that the next day automatically. If you don't get, obviously, a push from us on Discord to upgrade, because we are obviously pushing it. However, please, if you guys get any like if in mail like errors or anything like that, please let us know. We've tested it quite a bit with a bunch of scenarios, and we never once got a false positive, like a mail coming back to us saying obviously cron failed to run. But we need you guys input on that if that is the case, because we need to update it obviously.
And just to be completely sure, this cron job is being installed by default, so you don't have to do anything to get it.
Yeah, exactly. Right? So if you come through our package manager, so like package cloud, then yes, you will get the cron. If you install via the wizard, then you will not get it. That was deliberate on our part, just because people that install by the wizard obviously want to have more control, so we don't want to take that away from them and just presume that they're installing it on a certain place.
Makes great sense.
Yeah, and then these are all pretty much bug fixes that, like, most of them are quite CI/CD for us. changes because they all get passed into one.
We talk a little bit about the Kafka data source because that has been in the works for quite some time, right?
Yes. Do you know what? It's at the top of the list, and I completely missed it, didn't I? Yeah. So if you don't know what Kafka is, I'm muted.
Huh?
What?
Well, I just said if you don't know what Kafka is, you maybe don't need it. But
yeah, exactly. I'm going to be completely honest. I haven't done much reading on it, but I think it's just like a messaging protocol. So some people use it for pushing logs into a single data source. So what we've created is you can easily just set it up so it ingests from a point, and then it can then read logs straight from Kafka without having to have any sort of thing in between. Because with some providers, you might need to push them to a single data source, then that data source then logs to a file, and then obviously CrowdSec can then read from that file, which you don't need it from this case. You can then do it straight from Kafka.
Yeah, and not really knowing anything about Kafka. Is it like network based? Will you send the logs over network, or how does it work when you're setting up the log source in your acquisition file?
Yeah, so in the acquisition file, if we go back to package, acquisition, configuration, modules, Kafka. Oh, we haven't even created README. Let's go back, and click on this shiny button here. Cool. So sorry for blinding you with the white screen. Let me just turn on dark mode. Cool.
Thank you.
So so basically the way that it works is they have brokers, and yeah, because you have like pushers and then brokers, and then in this example, obviously we've got localhost here, but this can be like a remote agent. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend ever exposing it, but we support TLS, and then this is the way that you set it up. So basically, they connect to a remote instance, and they can just pull in the data from there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So it's not like on the syslog target where CrowdSec sets up a listing port. It's the other way around. CrowdSec pulls
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the way it works. Yeah, rather than syslog and getting things.
Right. That's cool. Oh, did you talk about the database issue and the new version with the fix or?
Well, there's quite a few people that have joined since then, so let's just reiterate over it. There is a 1.4.3 that's pending to be released, probably within the next day. The main fix for this is we altered the permissions on the CrowdSec database, which means that groups could not read from the database. So if you had a Metabase instance and you updated to 1.4.2, your Metabase would just crash. It wouldn't even allow it to run. So from 1.4.3 onwards, this has got the fix in. So if you're having issues, upgrade as soon as possible. But we'll do an announcement anyways via Discord just to prompt, because I know there was quite a few people roughly about a week ago that had quite a few issues with Metabase.
Yeah,
after updating.
On the day of the release, I was doing a workshop, and on my workshop, I used Metabase. So it was, well, let's just say it was pretty lucky that I tested it before.
Yeah.
So I was prepared. That would have been bad.
Yeah, and yeah. There's also a bunch of changes on the console side. I don't think we need to go over them in there, but I don't know, because we always get a glass tinted view of the console from our point of view, so I don't know what to show and what not to show. But
yeah, but I guess it sounds a bit like that was all that we wanted to tell about. People watch the recording and has any questions, just write in whatever support channel, I guess. It's probably the best way to do it.
Yep. So yeah, in the forums on Discord, that's the official title.